Welcome, Bronco Nation, college football, NFL fandoms of the world, to the preview of the most exciting NFL draft prospect that we have seen in our generation. Certainly the most exciting running back that has come to the NFL draft in quite some time. ASHTON Jeanty out of Boise State, a record-breaking running back who rushed for over 2,600 yards in his senior season for Boise State, 7-yard average and 29 total touchdowns. He also won the Walker, the Maxwell, and the Earl Campbell and Tyler Rose Award, and was a finalist, second in the voting. We won't go into that and some of the reasons behind that, but second in the voting for the Heisman as well. ASHTON Jeanty has made quite an impression on fan bases of pretty much every NFL team. And today, we're going to be looking at the NFL Draft, which is coming up in only a couple of weeks from now on April 24th. Which team is going to walk away with one of the most incredible prospects that we have seen come across the NFL Draft in quite some time, who is certainly bound to make a splash in his first season in the NFL. So which team is he going to end up? Well, all 32 NFL teams were represented at Boise State's Pro Day recently. ASHTON Jeanty, similar to Hunter, deciding to skip out on the actual drills at the combine and instead focus mostly on the interview side of things and mostly let their tape speak for themselves. Now, both of them did their own combines at their own pro days at their separate schools, and ASHTON Jeanty definitely pulled a lot of eyes to Boise, which was a huge thing for him to do, to really take all of that national attention, which he's done his entire career at Boise State, take all that national attention and focus it back to the school that he committed to, that he stayed committed to all the way through into the end here, when a lot of other schools would have loved to have him and there were a lot of NIL offers there for him to go. And so he brought all 32 teams to Boise for Boise State's Pro Day, where he again decided to skip out on most of the drills involved. Now, he did do some on-field drills. He did some routes, but he wants, in his own words, for his game tape to speak for itself. Now, this is a very interesting deviation for what we've seen in recent years from a lot of top NFL prospects. A lot of them are skipping out on certainly their team's postseason, but even in some cases their regular seasons, to focus on the combine. Instead, ASHTON Jeanty has put all of his effort into his school, into the on-field success, and skipped out in some ways on the combine and wants his game tape to speak for itself. Now, we'll have to see whether or not this plays out for him. Obviously, he did some very impressive things in college, but as many naysayers may point out, it was at a group of 5 level. And so we'll have to see how that impacts him in the draft. However, so far, it does not appear to have had any kind of negative impacts. Looking at what the draft experts are saying about Jeanty is that he's going to be a problem in the NFL. He looks like he was built in a lab. He's viewed as one of the cleanest prospects in the draft this year, not only on the field, but also off the field. His off-field character certainly speaking for itself as well. And then he's viewed as one of the best running backs in the NFL draft. And actually, if you look at his overall last 2 seasons, PFF has him as the highest graded running back with a 98.4. Far and away, the second closest running back in the last 2 seasons is Quentin Cooley out of Liberty, who's rated second there at 93.4. So almost a perfect running back over the last 2 seasons, junior and senior year. So where does he land? Well, running backs traditionally have had a little bit of a struggle getting drafted high in the NFL draft. Usually, you're looking at quarterbacks, a lot of offensive linemen, defensive players. Those tend to go higher. Running backs tend to be a pretty deep class, and a lot of them you see, even the good ones, even the running backs that end up being future Pro Bowlers, they end up slipping later in the draft or into the second round. In 2024, there were no running backs drafted in the first round. In 2023, there were 2 at number 8 and number 12, both out of Power 4 conferences, the Big 12 and SEC. 2022, again, no running backs selected. 2021, you had 2 in the later rounds of the later section of the first round at 24 and 25. And then in 2020, you had 1 running back drafted, the last pick in the first round at selection 32. So in the last 5 years, you've had 5 total running backs, and some of those years had some pretty deep classes. 5 total running backs selected in the last 5 years, and every one of them from a Power 4 institution, or previously Power 5. The last group of 5 running back actually was a Mountain West running back in Rashard Penny, who was drafted 27th there in 2018, so 7 years ago. But in the last 5 years, only 5 running backs, none of them out of the group of 5. So ASHTON JEANTY certainly projected to be a running back to break that group of 5 glass ceiling, to be selected in the first round. Boise State does have a history of first-round selections. They have a good history of draft picks overall, 74 NFL draft picks in their history. And they have 5 first-round NFL draft picks and 1 running back in that number. Of course, the memorable Doug Martin, the muscle hamster. I know he wasn't a super huge fan of that nickname, but all incredible things he did at Boise State, and unfortunately injury cutting his time at Tampa Bay a little bit short there. However, since Doug Martin, Boise State's had 3 running backs drafted, and none of them higher than the 3rd round. So again, ASHTON JEANTY with a lot on his shoulders here, not just as a running back in general, who do tend to struggle to be drafted high, not just as a group of 5 running back, but also even coming out of Boise State. Boise State, even with some great names. I mean, Alexander Madison, he was a 3rd round pick. You had Jeremy McNichols, who was a 3rd round, and then Jay Ajayi, due to some knee injuries, slipping to 5th round. All of those great names, great running backs. However, none of them being able to break into first, but it looks like ASHTON JEANTY clearly cemented to do so. But now, where's he going to end up? Obviously, there's 32 teams out there that could select him. However, of those teams, if you start looking at needs of the teams themselves, really only 8 of them jump out as really needing a running back in their top 5 needs coming into the first round here. And this is just pulling out of the NFL draft order and also their projected needs coming off of NFL.com. What I've done here is I've looked at those top 8 teams. We're just going to run through the facts. The teams that are listed on the NFL.com website in their draft order that have a running back in their top 4 needs for selection. We'll run through those names, and then I'll present you with my predictions. Then we'll go to what the experts are saying on their predictions. Now, to keep myself as close as I can to being unbiased here, I did not look at the experts' predictions until I'd finished writing my own. So you'll get to hear my thoughts, and then we'll see how the experts back those up. I also want to hear yours. This is a two-way street. I want to hear your predictions. Where do you think ASHTON JEANTY is going to end up? Where would you like to see him go, if either from your fan side or just where you think he would be a good fit, but also where do you think he's going to go? I want to hear those 2 things in the comment section below. I try to respond to every comment that's posted on my videos and have that discussion with each and every one of you. All right, so starting off looking at these NFL teams, the first team that pops up with a need, and there's several in the top 10 here that do need a running back, is going to be the Browns. They're listed as a 4th need for running back here. Their biggest need is quarterback, so I would be very, very hesitant, I think, to predict them to pick a running back here in their first selection. However, they could go for one. The Browns have no running back on their roster that had over 600 yards rushing, and running back is certainly in need of theirs. The Patriots at number 4, no running back with over 850 yards. They also had a really terrible offensive line, so that kind of impacted the stats a little bit from last season. But their running back needs also in the 4th overall selection as far as needs go. And then the Raiders has been a big name popping up in the discussion around ASHTON JEANTY. They have no running back with over 500 yards, and they just lost Madison, who was their top running back last season. He's gone over to the Dolphins now. So they really do need an RB1, and we'll talk about them here in a moment as far as potential, but they're listed as needing a running back overall first in their draft priorities. The Bears, now they do have a really good running back here in DeAndre Swift, who had almost 1,000 yards rushing. And then Caleb Williams, obviously, also a capable runner in that dual athletic mode of his, almost 500 yards rushing last season. But they would like to get a running back to complement Smith there in the backfield. And then we're looking at the 49ers. They have no running back with over 800 yards. They had a lot of injuries last season, but they still have Christian McCaffrey on their roster. And so their needs are more as a supplement to their depth chart there, 4th overall. Now we get into some of the teams that really need a running back, a little bit more interesting here. Dallas Cowboys, they lost their top 2 running backs from last season, and their current starter per ESPN is Javonte Williams, who's coming over from Denver, who only had 513 last season. So not exactly a bell cow back there in the backfield. They definitely need a running back listed as 2nd overall. Denver Broncos, who obviously, like I said, just lost one of their top running backs from last season. No running back with over 500 yards from last season left on their roster. RB is definitely one of their top needs. If there's one available, they're selecting at number 20 overall. football. And then the Steelers at number 21, they lost their 1,000-yard running back, Najee Harris, and they just certainly need one of the quarterback is certainly a concern for them as well. So where does Ashton Jeanty end up here? And he could go to a different team, not listed on here. Certainly, we see surprise in the NFL draft all the time. You see the team needs as they come down, and then a selection that has nothing to do with any of those gets picked. So we'll have to see. Teams could trade up from their current draft status, and you could end up seeing teams that are later on this list, like Steelers, get higher up, and maybe they have a chance to go grab a running back earlier on. Obviously the Titans have the number 1 pick. They need a quarterback. Probably going to be looking at Sanders or Cam Ward, but hey, maybe they go with Ashton Jeanty. Again, surprises can happen, though I would be extremely surprised to see Ashton Jeanty go number 1 off the board with the needs that the Titans have there. So where does he go? Well, just looking at draft order, and then I'll give you my order of where I think he's actually going to end up. Just looking at draft order of teams that I think are most likely to go for a running back there of the teams we just talked about right now. First that pops up, obviously, in draft order is going to be the Raiders. The Raiders are the first team with a real running back need in this draft. They're selecting at number 6, so they have the highest likelihood to go and get him. They may look at a quarterback. They have Geno Smith on the roster right now. He's an 11-year journeyman. He'll be playing for his 5th team with the Raiders this season. But I think they feel pretty confident with Geno, and they'd like to get a running back to complement. Jeanty's had a lot of in-person discussions with the Raiders. He's had interviews with them, even at Boise State Pro Day. He was seen getting lunch with the Raiders GM. He's actually there right now this week going for a visit to the Raiders. So they are really seriously considering him. And actually the Raiders GM said in a somewhat humorous interview discussion, said that his son has made it no secret if we don't pick Ashton at number 6 that he's walking out of the family. Obviously a little bit of a humorous interview discussion there, certainly not serious, but it does certainly leads when you have an NFL GM starting to talk like that, certainly shows that they are making some serious considerations to selecting Ashton Jeanty, and I think a lot of people would not be surprised if he went to the Raiders. However, coming up next in the draft order, there's a couple teams before them, but I think second in real running back needs are the Dallas Cowboys at number 12. Ashton Jeanty has actually stated he would like to play for the Dallas Cowboys. If anybody watched his first YouTube live stream, definitely check out Ashton Jeanty's channel. I'll put a link to that in the description of this video. But if anybody remembers that, he did say that he would love to play at home. He's from the Dallas area. He played his high school football at Frisco, Texas. So that would be a great fit for him as far as family dynamic goes. I think the Dallas Cowboys are in desperate need of a workhorse running back number 1. Now, Dallas Cowboys, you never know what they're going to select, especially with the new head coach coming in. And Jerry Jones, he really tends to bounce all over the board when it comes to the draft. But that's another team right there in the rankings that could select a running back early on. Now, if those two teams don't select, then you've got Denver Broncos at number 20, certainly in need of a running back number 1. A lot of faith in Bo Nix, but they need a powerful running game to complement. Too much pressure right now on the young quarterback. They need somebody to come along and complement him in the offense. And they use their running backs greatly in the passing game. Last season, actually, the running back Williams was 4th overall in receiving with 346 yards, and that is a strong talent for Ashton Jeanty. Didn't see as much this last season, but it's certainly something he is extremely capable of, not just in dump-off passes, but we've seen him run actual downfield routes, and he has strong hands. You look at his high school tape, you look at his tape, especially looking into 2023, you can see that downfield receiving capability, and that's something the Denver Broncos, I think he would complement really well. When you're talking about fits, pure fits, I think Denver Broncos is one of the best. When I was just in Denver this last weekend, visiting some family, and I was walking around in my Boise State gear, and so many Denver people stopped me on the streets and said, "Hey, love your running back. We hope that we can get him." And it was great, because usually when you walk around Denver with this kind of gear, even sometimes when it says Boise State, people mistake you for Denver Broncos. I'm Boise State fans. We see that all the time. But there's enough attention being paid to Ashton Jeanty, to Boise State, that they're recognizing the Boise State logo separately from the Denver Broncos. And there's certainly a lot of interest in the fan base there for him. I think that if he is still on the draft board, Denver Broncos certainly would be looking to go get him. And then the Steelers, obviously they need a quarterback. However, it's being reported that they are indications that the Steelers would be in favor of taking Ashton Jeanty over other quarterbacks available. Specifically, the comparison was made there to Dart out of Ole Miss. So there is a strong possibility that if he is on the board this late, Steelers, with their needs, still obviously needing quarterback, may go with Ashton Jeanty. And if they're able to take him at 21, it would be the steal of the draft. One team you may have noticed we skipped over were the Patriots. Now, they are at number 4 in the draft order. I think you're probably looking at them as the least likely of these top 5 that we've discussed right now to take a running back. But even though they have a solid running back in Rondé Stevenson, he's not Derrick Henry. And obviously, you got Mike Vrabel there, a former head coach of the Titans. He loves his run-first offenses. I'm not a huge fan of Vrabel because I think his offenses are very predictable, but he loves his run-first offenses, and he may be looking to Ashton Jeanty as a way to help compensate for the really terrible offensive line that the Patriots had last season. Maybe a strong running back presence there, in addition to some things that we saw out of the quarterback room for the Patriots, complementing each other and helping boost that offense despite some of the offensive line struggles. So you could see Vrabel, who obviously, did everything that he did at the Titans with Derrick Henry, might see a way back into the future here, to see, looking back into what his previous success was, may see a Derrick Henry-esque running back here in Ashton Jeanty. Obviously, a little bit of a different styles, but certainly a running back that you can take the rock to pretty much every play and have success. So what am I predicting as far as the order here? Well, I think you've heard me lean pretty heavily in here. I am thinking the Raiders are going to select Ashton Jeanty here off the board. The relationships seem to have been built the strongest between him and the Raiders management. They seem to be putting the most effort and work into getting Ashton Jeanty. They're in a prime position to get him in the top round of the draft, and they have the needs for it. So I think the Raiders is the most likely selection. After the Raiders, you would say Denver Broncos next in line there, right? Because I think when you look at some of these other teams, you look at the Browns, I'm not convinced that the Browns are going to go after running back first, especially with how strong their quarterback needs are right now. I think that when you look at the Bears, they have a really strong offense right now. I think that they maybe look at some other compliments. Ashton Jeanty would be a great grab for them, but he's not necessarily a need. They don't necessarily need to take Ashton Jeanty, though it would be a great organizational fit. And for the 49ers, they have a lot of strong running backs there, especially with Christian McCaffrey. However, when you go after a guy like Ashton Jeanty, you're looking at somebody to be the leader of your offense when you're making a pick that high. And I just don't think that the 49ers need that right now. So the Dallas Cowboys would be next up in that line. And they should take him. If Ashton Jeanty's available, they should take him. They do have some quarterback concerns there, but they do need a strong running back to complement this offense. They should take him, but you just never know with what Jerry Jones is going to do and the decisions that he's going to make. So there's a potential that they pass. And so I'm going to say, as far as my most likely picks here, I'm going to say Raiders number 1. And I'm going to say that Dallas Cowboys do what they've done so many times and pick the wrong guy and don't take Ashton Jeanty like they should, and he falls a little bit later here in the draft if the Raiders don't take him high. So Denver Broncos are my number 2 selection for potentially getting Ashton Jeanty, and I think he would be a perfect fit for that organization. I'd love to see him paired up there with Bo Nix. As far as third most likely, I'm going to go back here to the Dallas Cowboys. They should take him if he's available. I just don't know if they're going to make the right decision. That organization is such a mess structurally for the decision-making processes there. Just at a leadership level, it's just a complete disasters. If he's still late on the board and he isn't taken by these 3 previous teams, then I think the Steelers will go for Ashton Jeanty. I think he is just too exciting of a prospect to skip up. I know they need a running back. I know they need a quarterback. They don't have a great one right now. They have Mason Rudolph right now as their starting quarterback. But I think the Steelers, they've had so many issues with quarterbacks, even bringing in some of these more exciting elite prospects early on that aren't developed. And their offense has just struggled. And I think that they would look to potentially establish an offense around their running game here with Ashton Jeanty, and then start to develop a quarterback presence that can complement. I think you can have success with a young, inexperienced running back. It's a little harder when you're bringing in into a somewhat dysfunctional organization that's had some issues offensively and doesn't have that strong running back presence. It can be harder to bring in any quarterback and make that system work. And so I could see the Steelers going for Ashton Jeanty, as has been reported that they may be favoring. And then my 5th and the dark horse, like I mentioned before, the Patriots. I mean, they do have They have a lot going for them as far as reasons to go for a running back in Ashton Jeanty. It's not necessarily what the other experts, and I wouldn't say other because I'm not saying myself as an expert, but it's not what the experts are necessarily predicting there. But my variable, if it was any other head coach, I'd say they probably go for one of their other higher listed needs here. But my variable is that one variable in this equation. And I think he may look at Ashton Jeanty as a way to restore what he is used to, which is that number one strong running back presence, even though they do have a good one there in Stevenson. So that's my predictions. Again, I want to hear yours, but let's hear what the experts are, the actual experts are predicting here. So from ESPN, Mel Kiper agrees with me. He's saying Raiders. And again, I looked all these up after I'd made all of my predictions here, so as not to taint my own results. But Mel Kiper agreeing with Raiders. CBS Pete Prisco, he's saying he expects the Bears. Again, I would be a little bit surprised by that because I think they do have a strong running back game already between Williams, and then they also have a good running back, almost had 1,000 yards last season. So I think they already have a good running back, a running game right now. I'd be surprised to take a running back of Ashton Jeanty's caliber that high in the draft when you need have some other needs that need to be supplemented. But hey, Pete there's predicting the Bears. Fox Sports, Rob Gang also agreeing with me with the Raiders. NFL.com, Rhett Lewis is saying the Browns, which I would be pretty shocked by, honestly. That's an institution that needs a quarterback, and I think they go for a quarterback. But potential there, obviously, it's one of their needs. One of the teams we listed already. They could go for Ashton Jeanty. I don't know if I would love to see him saddled in that organization. They've made some really bad decisions in the past that we're not going to go into. But it would be interesting to see if he ended up there. Patriots.com, Mike Dassault, I may have mispronounced his name slightly there, but he's actually predicting the Patriots. So that's that dark horse that I mentioned. Patriots may go early here. I mean, they're number 4 in the draft. May go early and grab Ashton Jeanty early on. And then the Ringer, Deontay Lee, saying the Broncos. I mean, the reasons that I also expressed. Again, I think he would be a perfect fit for the organization if he's available that late in the round. And then just summing up here, because we're not going to go through every single draft prediction. But again, just summing up with ESPN's Mike Tannenbaum, he is predicting the Raiders. So the consensus out there, and if you start looking through some of the other predictions about the NFL draft, mock drafts per se, most of them are saying the Raiders. So I think the most likely landing spot based on everything that we're hearing right now is the Raiders. But this is certainly an NFL draft that the need that pops out the most is running back for so many of these teams. So I highly expect Ashton Jeanty to, I would, if I was a betting man, and I'm not, but if I was, I would even put money on that. He has certainly been going in the first round. There's too many teams that need a running back that also need a running back of Ashton Jeanty's caliber. He is the most incredible running back that we have seen come through college football in my lifetime. He is an incredible talent, and I can't wait to see what he does at the NFL level. So I hope you enjoyed this discussion. Again, I want to have that discussion with each and every one of you in the comments below. Please let me know where you think Ashton Jeanty is going to end up. And again, if you want to also have the discussion of where you'd like to see him end up, what organization you think would be the greatest fit, hey, throw him in there with Kellen Moore and the Saints, right? That'd be awesome. It'd be a great discussion to have. So please put that in the comments below. I'll also be coming out with an Ashton Jeanty career highlight tape here pretty soon as well. So keep an eye out for that. And if you love Boise State content, obviously this week's Ashton Jeanty focus, Ashton Jeanty content. If you love analysis, highlights, reviews, projections, everything that you would expect from a college football channel for Boise State or college football on the West Coast in general, make sure you like, subscribe. So thanks so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe. And as always, go Big Blue!